Hi, my name is Consolate and welcome to part 2 of this episode. I am so excited that you decided to join us again because a conversation with Renee for me is like having a sister who will be able to just give you so much wealth of knowledge, so many things to take away, so much to apply when it comes to your leadership, including for me, one of my biggest takeaway was just being able to lead not from a performance point of view or a place of trying to get everything perfect, but honestly, a place of making sure that we are genuine in our leading, that we are finding space to heal, and also leading with intention and having the right heart to be able to continue leading. So for me, I am super excited and looking forward for you to listen to everything else that this part 2 has to offer. And I cannot wait for you to listen to the whole thing. Welcome again and enjoy the episode. Thank you again. And we've got some cake that is in front of us. And I'm really excited to dig into it as we keep talking about resilient. But I wanted to kind of touch base on resilient, the relationship between resilient and Ben, and how can we avoid that, especially based on everything that we are talking about. Yeah.
I think there's so many parts to this, and I know that if I put my corporate hat on, there's so many programs and everything that are run out about working on your home and your work-life balance and all of this kind of stuff. Yeah. And really, in my opinion, it's a bit of a nonsense. And to set ourselves up to have expectations that we are going to be able to do it all, to me, is just fruitless, and we are setting ourselves up to fail. One of the things that I find really interesting is this idea that we've got work and we've got life. And it's 50-50 split. Yeah. And I don't know about you or the folks who are listening, but my life is not a 50-50 split. So the whole idea of finding a balance between those two, to me, just seems like an equation that's not likely to happen. Yeah. One of the teachers that I've had, her name is Christina Riley, and she has this concept where she talks about her life in like an orchestra, right? So if you imagine an orchestra and you've got the brass section over here and the percussion section over here and what's the woodwind and I don't know, there's all of these different sections. And if everything were playing at once at the same tempo, it would just be overwhelming, right? And so the role of the conductor is to direct what part of the orchestra is going at any given time. Now, if you can imagine that the orchestra is your life, and you've got, for me, my parenting responsibilities over here. Then there might be my business over here. There might be household chores over here. There could be church or community activities over here. So there's all of these buckets, right? And one of those buckets, as I say, should and definitely should be your spiritual and self-care practice, right? So that's one of those buckets or one of those sections in the orchestra. Now, it is completely normal that during life, there is going to be one part that is going to be louder for a while, right? And while that is going on, the other parts are going to have to be quieter. Or there could be 2 or 3 parts of the orchestra that the conductor is keeping on going at any given time, and other areas are going to have to be quiet at that time. And that is just normal. And if we can set ourselves up to go, okay, this particular part of my life is really noisy at the moment, but that's okay because I'm just going to quieten down this here. And for me, for example, it might be if work is really busy, my laundry is going to pile up.
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
And I could.
The messy part of life.
Yeah, that's the messy part. I know so many women who would then start to get down on themselves going, clearly I'm not a good housewife or I'm not a good housekeeper because look at the pile of laundries and dishes over here. And so the expectation is that they're going to be able to keep that going as much as being able to produce over here. When really the lesson is, yeah, this is busy for me right now. This is going to look messy. It's okay. It's the being able to say, and it's okay, that is key in this. And I will get over here and pick it up when I can. And I think one of the things that we fall into the trap of doing is going, there's all of these parts of the orchestra and they all need to go at the same tempo and the same volume all of the time. And it's just, that is a cacophony. That is overwhelming and it's just noise. It's not pretty. The sound that comes out is not pretty if that happens.
So how do you be kind to yourself? Because this is all beautiful, right? When you're building stuff and things are going and you are finding yourself that, yes, some part are really messy and some other time it's like the creativity part of it. How do you find time to be kind to yourself, and how can you show up kinder to yourself while you're going through this process?
I think for me, a big part of that shift has been just awareness. Sometimes it's just as simple as going, it's okay if that's noisy at the moment, or it's okay that is messy. Because we, again, when we talk about that conditioning, we're conditioned to think that we need to do it all. And the very act of just going, nope, it's okay, and giving ourselves the pass mark or the permission slip to let it go is all we need. The challenge oftentimes is that we are putting this pressure on ourselves. And we have the ability to take that pressure off. But we're taught that to be a good girl, to be a good woman, to be a good whatever it is that you're sitting in means doing all of these things to not just upgrade, but to distinction, high distinction. We're performing up here all the time, otherwise we're not a good girl. And it's not sustainable, and it's a story that both society has taught us and we take on, right? So there's yes, there is the general idea out there that might not necessarily seem to be a very conscious thing, but we take that. If I don't put out a product that is excellent, then I'm a failure, or it has to be perfect before it's good enough, right? Sometimes we set these expectations about what we can achieve that are just not achievable. And so sometimes it's about giving ourselves that permission to go, a pass mark is all I need. Do you know what I mean? You only need to do enough to get by this thing. Like, again, I'm going to use the laundry as a right? Yeah. I don't really, there's no hand washing going on in my house. There's no ironing going on in my house. So my housekeeping is not it's kind of standard, but it gets done. And getting done is so good enough.
Yeah.
And so it's understanding in yourself what are the areas that you're putting over emphasis on. What are the expectations in your life that you're putting too high. And we have this driver inside us that goes, I need to be really good in order to succeed. More often than not, that driver to be really good and not just good enough is actually stopping us from delivering the thing, from doing the work, from putting the product out, from whatever. And so that desire to be really good is actually stopping us from being good. So it tangles us up.
Yeah. How or what advice would you give to someone who is building a business? They don't have any kids, but you've had kids and all that, and you're a mom. What advice would you give to someone who is going through that, trying to build a business, but also being very mindful that this is something that I would love to do, and how can I still give myself grace or that kindness?
Adding a partner into the mix is just like adding another section to the orchestra, right? And that's okay. And it's about each time something is added in, it's like there's a reevaluation that you need to go through to go, what else falls off? Do you know what I mean? I know nothing about music, so anyone who's listening to this analogy is just going to be like, what the heck? But for example, you're adding, like, I'm going to make the kids percussion because boy do they like to make a lot of banging noise, right? So all of a sudden you've got so many more drums in your orchestra.
Yeah.
And that can be a permanent go. It could be dropping a product line. It could be dropping a service line. Or it could be going from full-time to part-time employment. So we make these decisions all the time. And I think that the reality is it's when we think that we have to do everything always, again, to that same level, that's where we get ourselves in a mess, I should say.
Yeah.
But it's going, okay, I'm willingly bringing this into my life right now, a partner, children, or whatever, a pet. I'm willingly bringing this in, and I need to be the one, I'm the conductor. So I get to go, what's the flow-on effect? Rather than just bringing it in and not expecting that there is going to be a change. We are seasonal creatures. We are cyclical beings. Whether it is your daily energy rhythms, whether it is, as a woman, your monthly rhythms, whether it's your life cycles, like we live in cyclical bodies in a cyclical seasonal world, right? So to expect that everything is just going to be linear and everything is going to be a trajectory that's just constantly like this is unrealistic, because we literally live in an up and down cycle, in an up and down world. When we can accept that there are going to be peaks and troughs, just know that this particular peak is going to probably come with a trough of some sort. Or this low time doesn't mean it's the end of all time. Yeah. It's just there will be ups and downs. And I think one of the lessons that we've been taught is productivity means more growth. Success is constant growth. Whether that's not necessarily how the world that we live in works. And so when we can start, again, to me, a lot of these things from my own personal journey and for what I talk about with my coaching clients is it's that conscious decision. One of the phrases that I use the most is to make the invisible visible.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things like these expectations, like the demands we put on ourselves, like the stories that we tell ourselves, they're invisible. We just act and respond, but they're not consciously visible in our lives.
Yeah.
But if we stop and act and think with intention and make that thing visible in some way by putting words around it, whether it's writing it down, going, I believe that I should be doing this, and looking back and going, oh, I don't actually believe that. Like making these invisible stories or beliefs or patterns visible, then you can deal with it. It's real, it's tangible. So much of what we do operates in the thought realm. Do you know what I mean? It's invisible, we just respond. But when we can be conscious about it, then we can actually act with intention. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It is a lot to take in though.
Yes.
Because I'm just going, this is a lot of wealth of knowledge.
It's a lot of
And I'm thinking, in my head, there is a woman out there who is building all this, but they are working through their past wound. And so how do they show up as a leader when they are still going through all those wounds and be a leader? But how can one connect with their purpose while trying to heal as well?
Yeah, I think it's an important question, and I think it ties in. You're right, we all have wounds in some way, right? Some sort of things that triggers us, or something that makes us feel a certain way. Again, one of these stories. So we've all got these things. And the story that leaders are perfect is a story, right? Literally nobody is perfect. And so to think that we have to be perfect or faultless to show up and lead in some way is in itself a story, right? A leader is somebody who has a vision, somebody who can see an alternative outcome for something, right? Whether that's for a community or whether it's for a group or whether it's for their business, like they've got a vision and they're working to bring people along with them, right? They're trying to encourage people to get on board with that vision. By no means is that person going to be perfect. And yet we immediately suggest to ourselves that we need to be in order to show up. If we don't show up, if we don't chase that dream, if we don't make effort and action to reach that outcome, right? Because we're waiting to be perfect first. Just consider all of the things all of the people who you don't impact, all of the change that can't happen because you're waiting to feel perfect. Because that's all it is, it's a feeling, right? So if you are waiting to give yourself permission because I feel perfect enough now to get out there, then you're missing so much opportunity to make so much change and value in other people's lives.
That's one thing that I had to personally accept and be okay with, just producing things even when you think it's not perfect. Because often enough I would find myself going through, it needs to be perfect, it needs to look good, it needs to be this and that, but I have wasted so much time waiting for it to be perfect, me wanting to make it perfect, and I got nothing to show for perfection. But the moment that I have noticed that I am putting things out there, even though it's nowhere near perfect, and I would like it to be somewhere else, but the moment I put it out there is the moment where I felt like doors were opening for me to level up or to be able to go to the next level.
Absolutely. I also think what's really interesting is our definition of perfect is subjective. Your version of perfect is different to my version of perfect. And so you're only ever evaluating that based on your own perception. You could put something in front of me that I think is perfect that you don't. And so it's like we're tangling ourselves up again. I think one of the ways that this really hit me was when I was working as a photographer. And people have this idea of photographers being these kind of cool, creative people. And I'm like, how can I, as somebody who looks like me, right, and being in a bigger body, get up in front of other people and be creating photos to make them look good? I'm like, I don't look good, so why would somebody come to me to choose me as a photographer to make them look good? This is the story I was telling myself. Now, it took a while. Clearly some stories are hard to break. But I started getting feedback that they were women who were going, no, because you weren't that perfect stereotypical photographer image made me feel comfortable enough to come and get my photos taken. Because I had this story that I had to be a certain way, where that certain way was actually off-putting for other people. But for me to show up as myself and just be me, they found that more comfortable, familiar, just more comfortable is the best way, so that they could do the thing. And so it really reinforced for me that the vision that I have for myself of what I need to be is just what I find that I need to be, not what everybody else around me does.
And I love how this would be a moment that can reconnect you to your purpose.
Absolutely.
Because you're like, I've had to look within myself, battle whatever the stories I'm telling myself in my head. And now, because I'm battling this and being okay with it, even though some days I'm like, fine, I'm working through it, and some days are just really tough, right? But out there somewhere, you are inspiring someone else to be like, you know what? I can also show up as myself. And that's how I love your work, because it actually just does that. It just actually identifies the whole promote her.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna ask you. You mentioned that at the beginning that the name is changing.
Yes.
What is the name changing?
So the name is changing. My business is becoming known as Kin Group Consulting. And that's because what I've found, in many ways, my heart breaks a little about moving away from the name Promote Her, because that was the core of what my business was. But what I have found is that, and I was touching on this earlier, in order for women to feel comfortable in the workplace, to have opportunity in the workplace, and in business, there's more folks or more people in jobs at the moment. We need to have workplaces with leaders who are actively creating safe environments for everyone to be in. And so what that has meant is that while my work with leaders, particularly women leaders in personal branding, and they're building their leadership confidence, is absolutely still continuing, my work is also expanding into working with organizations to build team cultures, to build inclusivity, to build equality, and all of those things into the team. Now, we operate in a world where the name Promote Her was putting off some organisations from engaging with it because it made it look a certain way. I was only working with one type of client. So logistically, just became important for me to change that. But it's a sign of also, to me, a progression or an evolution in the work. Whereas once I used to work solely with women, now I don't. It's changed, but it's still to the same outcome.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Financial empowerment for women is still the core outcome that I'm working towards. But it's understanding, and I think lots of businesses will find this, right, is that the outcome that they're trying to achieve is the outcome, but the ways that we can get to that outcome can vary all the time. And that's what I'm finding, whether it's been from photography to personal brand coaching to leadership coaching and now to leadership in HR, the outcome is still very much the same. But the way that I'm making an impact towards that is evolving around the world around me, if that makes sense, and what's needed and what I learn and grow into finding in that space. And so that's why the evolution, because it's my audience is expanding. I'm trying to be more appealing in brand-wise to a broader audience, but the work is staying. I'm just aiming to be a bit sneakier in how it goes into organisations.
I love it. I love how you're putting it all together.
It has been a really interesting journey when I look back on my career and look at the different pieces and go, oh, that doesn't match. But now I look at it and go, it's all starting to make sense.
You're reclaiming
your
own voice in leadership and coaching, and emotionally and spiritually you're doing it all together.
That's the
and
goal.
I really love, because I did put some question about reclaiming yourself and you've just spoke all about it.
Absolutely.
And I love it. Where are we at in terms of your next, I don't know, let's say 12 months from here? How does it look like?
For me, it's as my work evolves, and again, it's so common when you're in business, your work evolves and it's like a personal development journey follows, right? To make this happen, I've got to push myself out of some comfort zones. A lot of my work in recent years has been personally around trusting in my expertise, right? Trusting in the knowledge that I have. And so for me personally, there's a lot more going into that, like my own development into really feeling confident in talking about the things that I do, because I am incredibly passionate about it, incredibly experienced in the work that I do. And the irony, of course, and this is why I can talk to it, is because I am my client in many ways, right? I see in me the struggle that other women face, And so as I'm working through things myself, I'm also creating coaching tools and working with my clients to build the same thing. Lots more leadership coaching in my work in the next 12 months, more building authentic leaders into teams. That's a big passion for mine. And what I'm really excited about on a work front is I'm in the process of developing a management development program.
Wow.
So for those middle layers of management organizations, but we're really turning upside down what is the idea of management? What is power? And if we can start to move away from power in leadership being about how you instruct other people to behave and make them do things, and start to flip it and go, how do we have power with people? So that rising tide in how we build teams and manage teams as opposed to that top down. So that's been intellectually for me a really good rabbit hole to dig into, and I think that's going to be really cool.
Renée,
Product
it's
on the
been
other
such a great conversation with you. I think I'm going to end it there. I don't think we can go any further than that. If anybody wanted to find you, how do they find you?
Yep, so probably the best way is through Instagram. And so most of my ramblings are on my Instagram account, which is Renée Shea. Otherwise, KIN Group Consulting is where it's at for everything else as I slowly evolve that brand name.
I love it.
Hi, thank you so much for sitting for those part 1 and also part 2 of this entire series conversation with Renée. I had such a great time talking to Renée, and I am also quite happy that you also got to listen to that, watch that, learn from it, because it was full of wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much for taking the opportunity to tuning in and also listening to what we had to say. I would really appreciate it if you follow us on all the other social media platforms, because any update that we have, it will be there. And if you also want to purchase any of our workout gears, please go ahead on our site. You'll be able to get any of the stuff that we currently have on sale. Thank you again, and you have a lovely day.